It wasn't the screams that brought the police. It wasn't the blood. It was the smell. A thick, rotting stench that crept under doorways and lingered in hallways, turning stomachs and raising questions. In the summer of 1991, 2 Milwaukee officers followed that odor to apartment 213. Inside, they wouldn't find drugs. They wouldn't find stolen goods. They would uncover a horror so unimaginable it would shock the nation and redefine the meaning of evil. Tracy Edwards ran through the street, handcuffed, wild-eyed, shouting for help. He had escaped. From what? No one yet understood. But when officers followed him back to the apartment, what they found inside wasn't just a crime scene. It was a butcher shop, a human head in the refrigerator, photographs of dismembered bodies, jars filled with organs, skulls lined up like trophies. It wasn't just murder. It was ritual. It was obsession. It was Jeffrey Dahmer. Quiet, awkward, invisible. Jeffrey Dahmer was the kind of man who melted into the background. To his neighbors, he was just a loner who kept to himself. But behind those pale eyes was a child raised in chaos, a teenager who dissected roadkill, and a man whose fantasies turned fatal. The question wasn't just how he killed, it was how no one noticed. Born in 1960 in Bath, Ohio, Dahmer's early life seemed almost normal. But cracks were forming beneath the surface. His parents fought violently. His mother battled mental illness. Young Jeffrey, he was fascinated by death. While other kids played sports, he collected bones. He called them his friends. That wasn't a phase. It was the beginning. 1978, just weeks after graduating high school, Dahmer picked up a hitchhiker, Stephen Hicks. They drank, talked, but when Hicks wanted to leave, Dahmer panicked. He bludgeoned him with a dumbbell, strangled him, dismembered him, scattered his remains under the family home. Then, he went back to dinner, like nothing happened. After that first kill, silence. For nearly a decade, Dahmer disappeared into the background. He enrolled in college, dropped out, joined the army, got discharged. He drifted through cities, through bottles, through jobs. But the darkness never left. It just slept, waiting. By 1987, Jeffrey Dahmer was back in Milwaukee. He was older, more controlled, more calculated, and the urges had returned. Stephen Tuomi was the second. Dahmer woke up in a hotel room beside a corpse. His hands bloodied, his memory gone. He claimed he blacked out. But that didn't stop him from buying a suitcase and disposing of the body, piece by piece. It had started again, and this time, he wouldn't stop. Between 1987 and 1991, the numbers grew. One victim became 2, 2 became 4, then 10, then more. Young men, mostly black, mostly gay, lured with promises of money, drinks, or photos. He took them to apartment 213, drugged them, strangled them, and then he kept them, parts of them, photographs, skulls, hearts, pieces of people, because to Dahmer, death wasn't enough. He wanted to possess them forever. Neighbors complained about the smell, the strange noises, the power tools in the middle of the night. Once, a 14-year-old boy, naked, drugged, and bleeding, escaped from Dahmer's apartment. Police found him, but when Dahmer said, "He's my boyfriend," they laughed it off. They brought the boy back to the killer's arms. That boy, Konorak Sinthasomfo, was murdered hours later. The system had failed, and Jeffrey Dahmer kept killing. When police finally entered that apartment in July 1991, it wasn't just a home. It was a mausoleum. 3 heads in the freezer, a 57-gallon drum with decomposing torsos, a filing cabinet full of photos of bodies before and after death. The smell was suffocating, but worse was what it meant. This had gone on for years, and no one stopped it. When officers cuffed Dahmer on July 22, 1991, he didn't resist. He didn't run. He whispered one thing: "For what I did, I should be dead in custody." He confessed to everything. 17 murders, each one told with calm detachment, like he was reading from a diary. No remorse, only clarity and horror. Hour after hour, Dahmer sat with detectives, revealing details so disturbing they had to take breaks to cry. He spoke of bodies soaked in acid. He described necrophilia with a clinical tone. He wanted to create zombies, drilling into skulls, pouring acid into brains, hoping his victims would stay alive, yet silent. It wasn't just murder. It was a twisted experiment in control, in domination, in playing God. The story exploded. News vans lined the streets. America watched in disbelief as this soft-spoken man in glasses was revealed to be a monster. The Milwaukee Cannibal, the man who ate parts of his victims, hearts, biceps, thighs. Talk shows, headlines, late-night horror, but underneath it all, 17 families were shattered, and a nation was forced to ask, how did we miss this? In January 1992, Dahmer stood before the court. The world watched as his every word echoed through the headlines. He pled guilty, but insane. The defense painted a portrait of a man tormented by demons. The prosecution called him cold, calculated, evil in the end. The jury deliberated for just 5 hours. Guilty, 15 life sentences, 957 years behind bars. But even in prison, his story wasn't over. On November 28, 1994, just 2 years into his sentence, Jeffrey Dahmer was found in a pool of blood on the floor of the prison gym bathroom, beaten to death by a fellow inmate with a metal bar. Some called it justice. Some called it closure. But for the victims' families, it wasn't enough. Because no amount of punishment could undo what he had done. Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes weren't just murder. They were a mirror, a reflection of failed institutions, of racial bias, of police negligence, and of how evil can wear the mask of normal. He was the man next door, the quiet neighbor, the forgotten loner, and he was a monster. His story isn't just about death. It's a warning, because sometimes the scariest place in the world is home.